Hello, this is Leroy Meadows, and I want to welcome you to this session. And in this session, we're going to work out a couple exercises here. And we're actually going to work two exercises in this session for process costing because these two exercises are back to back, and the second one is dependent on information from the first one. So we're going to go ahead and do both of those, and we're going to do process costing using the weighted average method in this example. In the next session, in the next example, we're going to look at the same information, but using it for first in, first out purposes. So let's go ahead and get started here. The Assembly Division of Quality Timepieces Incorporated uses the weighted average method for process costing. Consider the following data for the month of May 2017. In our beginning work in process inventory, 100 units. For those 100 units, we have direct materials invested in them of $459,888 and conversion costs of $142,570. We started this month 510 additional units. So of the total amount that we had from beginning work in inventory, and we started in May, we completed 450 units, and we had 160 units in ending inventory, and the total total cost added during the period for direct materials, $3,237,000, and for conversion costs, $1,916,000. We're given the degree of completion for the beginning direct materials and conversion costs, 80% and 35% respectively, and the degree of completion for direct materials and conversion costs for ending work in process, respectively, 80% and 40%. So exercise 17-24, we're asked to compute the equivalent units of direct materials and conversion costs. Show physical units in the first column of your schedule. So work in process inventory, how many do we have units beginning? We had 100 units. And how many units were started during the current period? 510. So how many units do we have to account for here? Well, we have to account for 610 units. Of the 610 units, 450 were told in the problem here. 450 units were completed and transferred out. And then our work in process ending inventory was 160 partially completed units. So did we account for all 610 units? Yes, we did. Now, let's compute the next step of our equivalent units. So for the units completed and transferred out, by definition, they're 100% complete. So for conversion costs and for direct materials. Now, let's take a look at my ending work in process. What's my equivalent units of production here? We're going to calculate that. We're going to take 160 units of ending work in process, and we're going to multiply that by the degree of completion for direct materials and then for conversion costs. And we're told here ending work in process, and we're given a little footnote of B, so we know that we need to go to B here. Degree of completion, direct materials 80%, conversion costs 40%. So my degree of completion for direct materials 80%, so 80% of 160 is what? 128 equivalent units for direct materials and ending work in process inventory. And then I'm going to do the same thing for conversion costs. I'm going to take my work in process ending inventory and then multiply that by the degree of completion for conversion costs. And we're told over here 40%. So we're going to take that 160 times 0.40, and I have 64 equivalent units. So what's my equivalent units of work done to date? Simply going to be for direct materials, the 450 completed and transferred out, plus the 128 in ending inventory, which gives me 578. And then finally, for conversion costs, my equivalent units of work done to date, 514 units. And that is exercise 24. So now exercise 25, Let's take a look here, and let me bring this up here. Now we need to complete the rest of the production cost report. So we're going to go ahead and complete the rest of the costs. We're going to summarize the total cost to account for, calculate the cost per equivalent unit of work done to date, and then assign the costs. So let's bring this down here just a little bit so we have a little more room. Okay. So we need to figure out how much cost we have in beginning inventory. And the problem told us over here, beginning work in process inventory, we had direct material costs of $459,888. And then for conversion costs, we had $142,570. And again, we got those numbers straight from over here. So let's go ahead and format this real quick. So what are my total production costs involved in beginning work in process inventory? Total production cost is $602,458. And let's see here. And let's get that adjusted here. Now, what about the costs added in during the period? Well, we're told in the problem here, the cost added in during the period for direct materials was $3,237,000. And for conversion costs added through the period, it was $1,916,000. So we'll put that in here. And so what are my total costs incurred during the period? $5,153,000. So what are my total costs to account for? For total production costs, $5,755,458. And again, I just add these two to get my total cost to account for. And then I'm going to do it by cost category as well for direct materials and direct labor. For direct material, total cost to account for is $3,696,888. And then for conversion costs, $2,058,570. And again, for each of these cost categories of direct materials and conversion costs, I'm just taking the value of my beginning inventory and adding to that the costs added in the period. So now, because we're doing the weighted average method, I'm going to take my total costs incurred to date of $3,696,888, and I'm going to divide that by the equivalent units of work done to date for direct materials up here. And when I do that, I will get a cost per equivalent unit of work done to date of $6,396. Now let's do the same thing for conversion costs. Let's get a cost per equivalent unit of work done to date. I'm going to take my total cost to account for, and I'm going to divide that by the equivalent units of work done to date, which was 514. We computed that up here. So when I divide that out, my cost per equivalent unit is going to be $4,005. My total cost incurred to date divided by my equivalent units of work done to date for conversion costs. And actually, let me format that in dollars here. Now, what are we going to do here? Well, I'm going to take for completed and transferred out, for direct materials, I'm going to take my cost per equivalent unit and multiply that by the number of equivalent units transferred out, which was 450. And when I do that, I get a value of direct materials transferred out of $2,878,200. So how much materials do I have in ending work in process inventory? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my cost per equivalent unit, but this time I'm going to multiply it by the equivalent units in ending work in process inventory of 128. And that gives me a value of $818,688. And then I'm going to add those together to make sure that my costs accounted for direct materials and my costs to account for are the same. And in this case, they are. Now what I'm going to do for conversion costs, I'm going to do the exact same process. I'm going for the costs completed and transferred out with respect to the conversion cost category. I want to take my cost per equivalent unit of work done to date for conversion costs and multiply that by the number of units completed and transferred out. And in this case, I get $1,802,250 worth of conversion costs completed and transferred out. Work in process inventory, how am I going to value that for conversion costs? I want to take my cost per equivalent unit for conversion costs and multiply that by the number of equivalent units in ending work in process inventory. And when I do that, I get $256,320 worth of conversion costs in ending inventory. So now let's actually account for those costs. And is the total cost to account for exactly the same here as it is down here under total cost to accounted for? Yes, it is. So we know we did everything correctly. So now let's go and figure out the total amount of costs completed and transferred out. And when I do that, I'm going to simply take the cost of materials transferred out and the conversion cost transferred out. And when I add those together, the total value of my work in process that was transferred out of my department and transferred to the next department is going to be $4,680,450. Let's do the same thing for ending work in process inventory. What is the value of my balance sheet for my ending work in process inventory for this department? Well, it's going to be $1,075,008. How did I get that? Well, that cost of ending work in process inventory, remember it includes direct materials in ending work in process inventory plus the conversion costs associated with that. So that's how I get my $1,075,008. And here, when I add that up, my total cost to account for, or my total cost accounted for, is $5,755,458. Is that the same as my total cost to account for? Yes, it is. So we did good on this. So this is exercise 17-24 and 25. This is the weighted average method for process costing. So we really did this really quick, but the information was right there. It was very simple to work through. So so this was a good exercise to really watch. And if you need to, go back over, watch the videos. We did 5 videos in this chapter with process costing. So go back over those videos. The first 3 videos actually dealt with process costing. The 4th one dealt with operational costing, and the 5th one dealt with standard costing within process costing. So go ahead and look at all those videos if you need to refresh and go back and see what we did here to completely understand it. So this is Leroy Meadows. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day.